Okay, so today we're going deep into this pretty creepy story, right? About like a supposed cult operating in Ironbark Forest.
Hmm.
Our source material is this online article I found where a guy recounts his like terrifying experience.
Yeah,
And what gets me is this isn't just like some, campfire tale. This guy claims he witnessed some really messed up stuff.
it's definitely, yeah, it's a compelling read, like, especially because it's from his point of view, right?
Right.
You're instantly, like, as a reader, you're in the narrator's shoes, feeling his fear and confusion right alongside him.
Exactly. He starts off describing how he took this job as a fire watchman, right? Looking for some peace and quiet
Right.
in this remote lookout tower deep in Ironbark Forest. But, what begins as an escape turns into a total nightmare. And it starts with whispers, like these faint voices he hears on the wind. I mean, can you imagine if you were alone in this huge forest? How would that make you feel?
Well, you got to think about it this way. Our minds are, like, wired to find patterns,
Yeah.
even when they aren't really there. And in that kind of isolation where you don't have much sensory input, I mean, your brain can easily, like, misinterpret sounds, right? Especially in an environment like a dense forest. I mean, that could explain the whispers. But what's really interesting is how the narrator, and like us as readers, immediately jump to something more sinister. Like, something's wrong here.
Yeah, he doesn't stay in the dark for long. He comes across news reports talking about all these disappearances in Ironbark Forest, hikers, travelers, even park rangers, like vanishing without a trace. And these reports, they don't outright say anything supernatural is happening, but the implication is pretty clear, right? Something weird is going on.
It's a clever way to tell the story, don't you think? By
Yeah.
bringing in these disappearances that seem totally unconnected. The story, like, subtly validates the narrator's growing unease. It's not just him experiencing something strange anymore. Like, there's stuff happening outside of his point of view that backs it up, and it just makes the suspense even higher. What do you think about that? Like, when you were reading it?
I'd be freaking out. But our narrator, he's like driven by this, I don't know, morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
One night, he spots a group of figures gathered around this fire at the base of the forest. Their clothing is strange. They're eerily still moving in sync with each other. It's all super unsettling.
Right.
He decides to investigate, even though, I mean, every instinct is probably screaming at him to run the other way.
It's almost like he's being pulled in, right?
Yeah.
Compelled to uncover the truth, no matter how scary it might be. And this is where the story gets, like, more tangible visual. We go from the scary whiskers in his head to this, like, concrete visual encounter. So the threat suddenly feels way more immediate.
So the next morning, he cautiously makes his way down the trail, trying to stay hidden, and what he finds is straight out of a nightmare. These figures are still gathered, but now they're standing around a stone circle.
Uh-huh.
There are symbols etched into the stones. They're chanting in some language he doesn't recognize, and it hits him. They're performing some kind of ritual.
This is where the story really taps into our fascination with the occult, I think. The unknown,
Right.
the rituals, the possibility of some power we just don't get. That's what really freaks us out, right? And it gets even worse when he witnesses the, like, awful climax of the ritual.
He sees them sacrificing people.
Ugh.
The missing hikers, the ones from the news reports, they've become victims of this cult's messed up ceremonies. It's not just a creepy story anymore. It's a fight to survive.
Yeah, the stakes are insanely high now, right?
Oh, yeah.
The narrator stumbled onto something truly dangerous. His own life is on the line. There's this sense of urgency that forces him to act. I mean, what are you thinking at this point in the story?
I'm thinking this guy needs to get out of there, and fast.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he does. He tries to slip away unnoticed, but they see him. He describes this like chilling moment of eye contact, and then the chase is on.
Oh, wow.
The story turns into this heart-pounding escape through the dark forest.
This is where the writing is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
It's visceral. You can almost feel the panic, the desperation as he's running for his life. But even if he gets away, the question is, what next? How do you deal with something so traumatic, especially when you know the danger is still out there?
That's what we're going to find out as we continue this deep dive. And he gets away, which is like a huge relief. But man, can you imagine what that does to you mentally and emotionally? You've seen something so messed up, something that just like breaks your whole understanding of the world.
Yeah, the story really, like, makes it clear how this experience just shatters any sense of normalcy he had.
Right.
It makes you think about, like, how fragile our feeling of safety really is. One minute you're looking for peace and quiet in nature, and the next you're running for your life from a crazy cult.
Exactly. And to make things even worse, when he finally gets to the closest town and tries to tell the authorities what he saw, they don't buy it.
That part really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
It shows just how hard it is to prove something that's like outside of what people normally understand. We often rely on hard evidence, right?
Right.
Or witnesses to back up what someone says, but what happens when those stories are dismissed as like unreliable or just too crazy to believe?
He's trapped in this horrible situation, knowing the truth, but being totally powerless to do anything about it. It's like a classic horror movie trope, but it also speaks to a bigger problem in our society, don't you think?
Totally.
How often are warnings or people crying out for help just ignored because they don't fit into how we think things should be?
It makes you think about the consequences of not believing people who've seen things, especially when it comes to stuff that challenges what we think we know about the world. What if, by trying to keep things orderly and rational, we end up silencing the people who actually have important information?
So the narrator goes back to the city, but obviously he's really messed up by what happened. The memories, the whispers, the horrible ritual, it all sticks with him. And underneath all that, there's this chilling realization that the cult's still out there doing their thing in the shadows of Ironbark Forest.
It's that lack of closure that really gets under your skin, right?
Oh, yeah.
We want things to be wrapped up, a sense that justice has been served, or at least that the danger is gone. But this story leaves us feeling like the danger is still there, hidden but real.
It's like a wound that never heals. And this unsolved mystery, it feeds into our fascination with the unknown. It forces us to face the fact that there might be forces at work in the world that we don't understand at all, forces that don't care about our logic and reason.
And it pushes us to deal with the uncomfortable truth that sometimes, even if we try our hardest, some mysteries stay unsolved. What do you think, like as someone listening to this story, what's the most impactful part of this unresolved ending?
I think for me, it's the question of who we can trust. If the authorities, the people who are supposed to protect us, are so quick to dismiss these stories, then who's left to search for the truth?
That's a powerful question. It highlights for responsibility each of us has to be careful, to question things, and to be open to the possibility that there's more to the world that we can see or easily explain.
Really makes you think, doesn't it? About like who to trust and what to believe, right? And how to even make sense of stuff that just doesn't have an explanation. So here we are at the end of our deep dive.
Yeah.
And I'm still left with so many more questions, you know? We have this super detailed account from the guy, signs of some kind of ritual, and the fact that nobody seems to be taking it seriously. It's wild.
What I find really interesting is how this story, even though it's made up, connects with our real-life anxieties about the unknown, right? We see it not just in like our fascination with cults and conspiracy theories, but also in how we deal with scientific mysteries or things that just can't be explained. Like there's this need in us as humans to understand, to put things in boxes, to create order in a world that can feel pretty chaotic.
Yeah, totally. We want answers, we want closure, but what happens when those answers just aren't there? When the closure we're looking for stays out of reach? This story seems to be saying that sometimes the most unsettling truths are the ones we can't easily explain away or just ignore.
And it kind of forces us to look at the limits of our own perception, right?
Yeah.
We tend to trust our senses, our ability to reason. But this story reminds us that there might be things happening just outside of our awareness, stuff we can't see or fully grasp. Does that like make you feel vulnerable, knowing there might be things out there we can't control or even fully wrap our heads around?
It definitely makes you question how much we really know about the world. Like if something like this could happen without anyone noticing, what else could be going on out there? But I think there's also a sense of like empowerment that comes from acknowledging that there are still mysteries out there, things that make us question what we think we know.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we always have more to learn, more to explore.
For sure.
And even though the unknown could be scary, it can also be a source of wonder, of curiosity, you know?
Right.
Instead of being afraid of the unknown, maybe we should embrace the chance to learn from it, to broaden our understanding of the world and our place in it.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this final thought for everyone listening. If the authorities are okay with letting these mysteries stay unsolved, if they're not willing to go into those hidden places where logic and reason don't work, then who will? Who are the people out there searching for the truth? And how can we help them in their missions to uncover what's really going on beneath the surface?
That's a question worth asking ourselves. Maybe the first step is just being willing to listen, to be open to different ways of seeing things, and to use our critical thinking skills even when it makes us uncomfortable.
And maybe, just maybe, if we're brave enough to face what we don't know, we might find that the truth, no matter how weird or scary it is way more enlightening than the shadows we choose to leave unexplored.